Is your business struggling to stand out from the crowd online? At Webamax, we specialize in turning clicks into customers. From SEO and PPC to social media management and stunning web design, we've got you covered. Boost your online presence and drive real results. Ready to take your business to the next level? Visit Webamax.com. That's Webimax.com for a free digital analysis. Rule the web with Webamax.com.
Hello, Duke fans, and welcome to DBR Bites, episode number 54. We told you we had some more intel as to what the 2024-25 Duke basketball team is doing in practice and who was on the rise, who could be starting. We have all that for you. I'm Donald Wine. I'm your host for this episode. Jason Evans is still with me. We're actually recording this right after we recorded the NBA draft one because, as we said, this week has been hell for both of us. It's been super busy, and it only keeps getting busier. So we wanted to make sure that we had enough content for you to consume over the weekend. Jason, let's start with the practice notes that you got courtesy of one of our listeners. So we want to thank our listeners for that. Again, dbrpodcast@gmail.com. If you have intel that you want to share with us, the email inbox is a great way to do it because we will take you up on some of these things that you guys are sending. But Jason, tell us about some of the information, or first of all, if we can reveal who gave us this information. Can we?
No, we're not saying his name. No, he does not want us to use his name. That's perfectly fine. The situation was this. Duke, as you know, is holding basketball camps. In addition, they do the K Academy. In addition to K Academy, they do basketball camps for youth teams and stuff like that. And someone who's been a longtime listener to this podcast was able to attend one of those camps as a coach. And John Shire invited some of the coaches who were there to come watch a Duke practice. And then Shire spoke to those coaches a little bit about the team and about things going on in the practice. And this person who was there was able to tell, they saw a full 5-on-5 scrimmage of the Duke team, and they were able to tell us a little bit about what they saw. I want to start, before I get to what they saw, I want to start a little bit with what John Shire said to these folks who were watching the practice. He spoke about the team and said that he and the Duke coaching staff have made a conscious decision to not do as many individual workouts with the team this summer. They are doing a lot more team-related kind of stuff. And that means that they are, at the moment, figuring out things like who are the starters and what are the rotations and how are we piecing all these different pieces together. In the past, Duke has focused on doing more individual kind of development sort of things because I think Duke had younger teams. And even though this team has a bunch of young freshmen on it, they are freshmen who are, for the most part, very, very skilled already. And this Duke team has enough guys returning and enough transfers coming in that I think John Shire feels like, I'm not going to do the usual individual workout stuff. Sion James and Mason Gillis, who've been playing college basketball for longer than I've been a head coach, don't need me working on individual skills with them. We need to be developing these guys into a team. And I think that's a really, really interesting observation that John Shire has made about his personnel and what kind of team he wants to put together.
And Jason, just to interrupt, I think that's a great idea, right? Because if you think about it, as a team, right? Yes, you're going to have some individuals that may need work in areas, but sometimes the best way to do that is on the floor as a team, right? I could sit here and shoot, just like, growing up, I could sit here and shoot 500 3-pointers and do that every single day and get better as a shooter. But it means nothing if I don't know how to do it in the flow of competition, how I know to get to a wing. And also it helps teammates learn each other's moves, right? The hope is that, Cooper Flagg is going to know where, Caleb Foster is in the corner when he needs a three, or Mason Gillis or Sion James. He's going to know how to clear a lane out so that, Tyrese Proctor can go to the hole. Those are little things that are not worked on in individual workouts. They're worked on as a team. And you can do all these little things until you're blue in the face. And yes, that is part of helping you get better as a basketball player. but that doesn't leave as much time for you to develop the chemistry on the floor that's needed to win a title.
Exactly. I completely agree. All right, so let's get to some of the things that this person noted when he was watching the scrimmages. So the very first thing is this. They divided up into a 5-on-5, blues against whites. And there are 5 guys who put their uniforms on together. And I think, look, I don't know. Boy, this sure sounds like this is 4/5 of the starting lineup for the Blue Devils. It was Tyrese Proctor, Sion James, Cooper Flagg, Malik Brown, and Patrick Ngongba. I think that if you take Ngongba out and put in Kaman Malawach, I think that is what John Shire thinks is the current starting 5. Again, Proctor, James, Flagg, Brown, and I think Kaman Malawach instead of Patrick Ngongba. The other team was Caleb Foster, Isaiah Evans, Con Knippel, Mason Gillis, and Kaman Malawach. Now, it may be that part of why they divided them up that way was to put a defined point guard on each team with Proctor and Foster. Perhaps Foster is starting ahead of Sion James. You know, when you actually put together the guys who will be the starting lineup, I'm not sure at the moment, but I think it is very interesting that they put the teams together the way they did. All right, so now let's get to how everybody played. And before I get to the individuals, I want to say a couple things, just general observations that were made to me. The first was this. The whole team, all 10 guys, felt super unselfish. A person who watched this practice said to me that they recalled times last season where we would see, you know, like 4 or 5 passes leading to an open shot. And as fans, we would go, yes, that is what we want Duke's offense to look like. And we'd get so excited. And there would be games. Remember, Donald, there were games where Duke was getting assists on 60% of their baskets. And you and I, you talk about assist
Ball
rate
movement
more than anybody. That is like your big stat, assist rate. And Duke had some games where their assist rate was huge, but then it would fall back in other games. And we'd be frustrated. We'd be like, you know, this is what our offense should look like, but it doesn't look like it. It would fade in the next game. What I was told was this team, the current Duke team, the one that's going to be playing next season, is going to look like that all the time. That it was just glaringly obvious that this is a team that is always looking for the next pass, to make the right pass, to make the right play, to put someone else in a better position than you are. And I think that is a really, really good observation. And then I'm going to give you one other one before I get to the individual players. So I mentioned who the 5-on-5 was. Shire did move guys around, you know, into different lineups. They created different scenarios, different sets of teams, and they would play little mini games and stuff like that. My spy, who was watching all this, said there was a consistent factor that happened every single time. No matter how much you moved guys around, Cooper Flagg's team won. Cooper Flagg's team was always the best team. What I heard was that the defining characteristic of Cooper Flagg is that he is a winner who does whatever it takes to make those around him better and lead his team to victory. And my source recalled, he was like, I remember back in the day hearing that Gene Banks was on the team that always won all the scrimmages in Cameron. He said, well, Cooper Flagg is like that. His team just always, it's not that he's the leading scorer or anything, but his team always wins the scrimmages.
And if you remember during the 2-part, brilliant interview that we had with Brendan Marks, he mentioned, as we have mentioned a couple times on this show, that Cooper Flagg's competitive drive is, quote, maniacal, right? Like he does not like losing. He wants to win at all costs, and he will do what is necessary to win. And that is infectious in a team. And again, part of these team building exercises, like, again, by the time this season starts, hopefully you have 12 guys, 13 guys who are going to have that we are not planning on losing any game this season type of attitude, and approaching that when there's, crunch time or anything like this. But man, it's great to hear that Cooper Flagg has it. And it doesn't mean that the other guys don't possess that, but we've been told that it's maniacal, and that apparently is showing in these practices.
Exactly. All right, so let's get to some of the individual players. I'll start with Cooper Flagg. My guys, it's so funny to me. Everyone says the same thing about Cooper Flagg. They all say he's the real deal. Like my guy said, he's the real deal. Like everyone, Jay Billis said that, Brendan Mark said that. Everyone just goes, Cooper Flagg's the real deal.
At a certain point, you like, are they again, like you said, is everyone messing with us, or is this true? Like, is it becoming true? But again, I don't think I've heard anyone who's like, he's just meh. Everyone has said this kid is a special talent.
Exactly. So what I heard was that everyone in the stands, everyone watching this practice was just like buzzing about him. It is so obvious that he is the best player on the floor. I was told that his vision, his understanding of the court is just unbelievable. He just knows where everyone is at the right times, at all times. He has this super high IQ. And when you then combine that with unbelievable athletic ability. And what my source said was that it reminded him a little bit of Kyle Singler, but if you had Kyle Singler in like a uber athlete's body, not that Kyle Singler wasn't athletic, but Kyle Singler wasn't like a run, jump you out of the gym, faster, quicker than everybody. Kyle Singler was a guy who understood the angles, understood the geometry of the game, understood where to be on the floor. Well, what I heard was, this is Kyle Singler, but you put him in like, I don't want to say Zion like athleticism, but something like that. And that's why Cooper Flagg is the real deal. I was told that Cooper took a few threes, but didn't hit them, but looked like he's a guy who's confident taking that shot. And the other really interesting thing, and then I'll let you jump in on Cooper before I get to some of the other players. I was told that Cooper Flagg was running the offense, playing very much like a point forward. We saw a little bit of that, Donald, in the scrimmage video. But these guys are mostly, this Duke team is mostly playing positionless basketball. Guys are switching 1 through 4. They didn't really switch 5. Gongba and Malawach stayed on each other, but the other guys are all just switching constantly. But the one constant in all that switching is that the ball is in Cooper Flagg's hands a lot, even when he's on the same team with Tyrese Proctor, even when he's, alongside Caleb Foster, guys who you would think have the ball in their hands a lot. Everybody is just putting the ball in Cooper Flagg's hands and letting him make the decisions.
And that sounds similar to what we saw with Paulo Banchero a couple of years ago, right? Like there's a lot of times where Paulo Banchero would be the guy bringing the ball up, even though, he was a 4 essentially playing. But I think it's also reminiscent of what we see in the NBA a lot, right? Like, LeBron James is not the point guard of the LA Lakers, but he sure plays like it, right? Because he has the ball in his hands quite a bit. And if you have the star is able to bring up the ball, that helps in situations, especially down the stretch.
All right, so let me get to a couple other players, and I'll start with a couple of the other freshmen. I was told Kamen Malawach is raw. We've heard this again and again. Same way we hear Cooper Flagg's the real deal, we hear Kamen Malawach is raw. But I was also told, boy, he makes some spectacular plays. He dunks with authority. He is someone who there needs to be an altered shot category, because guys get in the lane and see his length and they have to put up an awkward shot to avoid getting their shot blocked by him. But I could also tell, you can really tell he's still learning, that he gets out of place a lot, just gets sort of lost on the floor. And that compared to Patrick Ngongba, Malawach doesn't really know the angles and where to be and the such in the same way. He's an incredible physical specimen. He's probably a presence unlike what Duke has had in a while. And I'm including Mark Williams and Derek Lively, that I think Malawach is a little more physically imposing than both of those guys were, even if I don't think he's going to be the shot blocker that they were, but just in terms of physicality in the lane and the such. But that Malawach really needs to figure out where to go. But I was told that Patrick Ngongba was playing really well, knows where to go on the floor, knows how to help his teammates out, and that if you're discounting what he's going to do, you may be making a mistake. I was also told he's clearly not in shape yet. He's still playing his way back into being the player that he can be. But from what I heard, this is a guy who is going to battle for minutes for Duke, even though there's some people who think he's the 10th or 11th man.
It'll be great to see how both of these two develop over the summer, right? I think that might be in a way, the most crucial piece of this is how one of those two or both of them can develop. And just having that tandem where, again, you want it where you have a guy who's going, 25, 30 minutes, but when he comes off and the other guy subs on, the other team just drops their head even further because they're like, there's no let up. And I think that's the key here is you combine Ngongba having more of a polished game than Malawach, but maybe not as in shape yet because of the injury that he had all of last year. Malawach, who is this raw specimen who can, send the ball into the rafters on blocks, but also needs to learn how to be in position and not necessarily, not necessarily stay in focus, but like know where he needs to be on the floor at all times. Because if he's in the right place, he will make the right play. And I think that's something that's going to be worked on over the summer. Again, this is the theme of the whole thing. Again, why we have these drills with teams instead of individuals. He can learn the footwork and stuff like that by himself, but he needs to apply it when he's on the court with 9 other guys and figure out how to be in the right place at the right time.
That is a great point. I love that. All right, let's get to a couple other freshmen. I was told something really interesting about Isaiah Evans. So what my guy said was, you may find that you sort of don't even notice Isaiah Evans for a couple games. And then suddenly he'll have a game where he just goes off for like 10, 12, 15 points. And all of us will go, oh, he has arrived. And then he'll disappear again for a few more games. That it's glaringly obvious that this guy's going to be super, super streaky. But what I was told was, look, when things are not going well for the team, like if Duke's maybe struggling on offense some game, Isaiah Evans is going to be a guy that John Shire can put in the game and go, let's see, maybe this is one of those days that Isaiah is going to light it up for us. And I think that's a really, I buy into that for Isaiah Evans, in a big kind of way that you sort of play him, see if he's having one of those days. If he's not, okay, Isaiah, we're going to work on consistency. You'll get there later. But if he's having one of those days, you ride that pony because he could carry you for a little bit and could be really useful as a fire plug, a microwave, so to speak, off the bench. And then I heard about Con Knuppel. So he did not shoot super well when my guy was watching, but you could tell that Duke expects him to shoot, that they have no problem with him, taking whatever shot he can create for himself or whatever shot is available, and that he expects to hit them. And, it maybe didn't go in as much as hoped when my guy was watching, but that it looks like Khan knows how to put it in there. And I was also told that he plays really, really hard. My guy said it's gonna be tough for him to find minutes. There are so many good guys on the wing, but Khan is going to make you sit up and pay attention, and he's not going to give an inch to anybody. And my guy thinks he will be a significant player in the rotation.
I find the Evans thing interesting only because we have been aiming for consistency from beyond the arc, and it'd be it fascinates me that there's a potential that you kind of bring in and Isaiah Evans, and it's almost like rolling the dice, right? Like you're almost like, hey, what are we going to get today? Are we going to get 8 threes or we're going to get 0? And kind of be in that position of not knowing. It's kind of interesting in a way, but I also like that they're embracing the streakiness as of right now, right? Like you take what you can get and figure out how to apply it to this team. And as he gets more consistent, which he will, as he gets more consistent, then you factor that into your plans. But yeah, you have to have some guys that come off the bench that can give you a lot in very short period of time. As we've mentioned before, there's 10 guys, 11 guys that are aiming for a lot of playing time, and not all of them are going to get it because there's only 200 minutes to divide amongst those guys. And so you have to figure out who's going to be that guy that can come off, give you 3 minutes, the hockey shifts, so to speak, of whether it's rebounds, whether it's blocks, whether it's defense, whether it's shooting a few 3-pointers, and then being okay with sitting on the bench for long stretches of time, not knowing when their next chance, their next opportunity will come, but then they'll be ready to do it. So the streaky part might get a little frustrating for people because look, we have evidence. We went through it all last season where guys would hit 8 threes and then, the next game we'd hit 1. So it was quite frustrating in that regard. But I guess the theme of that is patience. These guys are going to develop into more consistent shooters. That's the hope, at least. And if they do, then we got ourselves a guy who can come off the bench and just light it up from anywhere.
Let me get to the transfers really quickly. Malik Brown. So my source said he'd expected to see, all these deflections and steals from Malik Brown. We've heard all the hype on him. What he said was he didn't really see as much of that as you would think, and he was a little bit disappointed in Malik Brown. By the way, he had an interesting comment. He said, "I've never seen hair as long as Malik Brown's hair." He's like, "Is there a rule about like your hair covering up your number so the officials can't see who committed the foul or whatever?" Because Malik Brown's hair is so long that you can't see what
It's an
number he
interesting
is.
strategy, Jason. Like,
Yeah,
I didn't do it.
exactly.
Like, you can't. No, what number am I? You can't tell.
um, I was told that Mason Gillis, solid, just really solid. If there was anybody out there that was hitting threes, it was Mason Gillis. Was hitting his 3-pointers, hit a few of them. He will absolutely take an open shot if you leave it for him, but not a guy who's going to force things. Just never, never, never. He's always just going to make the smart play. And then Sion James, we've heard this again and again. Man, he's just physically mature, an impressive physical specimen, so strong, really solid, took open shots and made them consistently. And just the overall theme when you watch him play is that like he is a man and he can do what he wants as a result of that physicality on the floor.
Yeah, I think with Sion James, it's a question of whether he's going to start, whether he's going to come off the bench. But I feel like in any of those situations, he's going to thrive on this team. And I think, Jason, the other thing that I am impressed with over and over is every single person has said Mason Gillis is solid. That is the key definition for him. People from Purdue are like, that man is a solid dude. Like, just solid in all areas of the game, his character, everything. And I think the one thing that he is going to hopefully bring is leadership and just the experience of, guys, I've done this. I got to this point and I just didn't get the action to hold the trophy. This year I want to hold the trophy, but let me take you on this journey that I went through. And this is the steps that we need to do to get there. And I think that sort of just, again, doing that in a way where we don't know if he's going to be the starter. We don't know if he's going to get 30 minutes or 12, but we know he's going to be a factor on this team. And I think just he's a known commodity in the sense that a solid dude is someone you always need on a team like this.
Yeah. And by the way, really quick aside, his episode that he just did of the Brotherhood podcast with Caleb Foster, CFOS, as the new host there. Really, really nice episode, folks. If you haven't downloaded that, if you haven't watched that on YouTube, whatever it may be, the Brotherhood podcast, the Mason Gillis episode, again, his experience, his leadership just oozes through that entire episode. I won't be at all surprised if this team decides when they vote on captains that Mason Gillis's name is one of the prominent names that comes up there. I also loved in that episode that he said this is probably the most talented team that he's ever been around. I'll take that. I wanted, before I wrap up here with sort of the notes that I got from the practice, mention both Tyrese Proctor and Caleb Foster. Obviously, we know those guys better than anybody else. I was told that Tyrese Proctor did not seem, all that different from last season. That's not a surprise. My source was a little frustrated with him, so to speak, that he felt like Tyrese kept on sort of getting himself stuck in the lane. I think that maybe the long defense, the outstanding defense this Duke team is going to play may have, been a little bit of a factor for Tyrese, gets in there and suddenly, doesn't really have any place to go because there's so much length opposing him. But that's clearly something he needs to work on. And then regarding Caleb Foster, I was told that he looked a little bit better than he did late last year, seemed a little more assertive, especially when he was running the team. When Tyrese Proctor was on the other team, Caleb Foster looked a little bit better than he did a year ago. We need him to be better than he was a year ago. But that kind of wraps up the comments that I got about how the team played.
I will say I'm not surprised that Tyrese Proctor, it seems to be, he hasn't improved anything because it's only been a couple months. That improvement is going to come as he gets to learn this team. But I also think, Jason, the funny thing about when you sent the notes and said got caught in the lane, sometimes I'm like, good. You know why? Because this is the tallest team he'll face this season, is his own team in practice.
Totally.
So if he can learn how to, do that, floater or whatever, that jumper in the middle of the lane over the trees that we have, then he's gonna feel so much more confident in doing that against any other team in college basketball that we face this season. So I'm okay with him learning through these quote mistakes with this team.
Hey, and last really quick note, doesn't relate to the team, but relates to something in a little bit of Duke history, so to speak. I was told that Theo John was at the camp, is back on campus. He was there for K Academy as well. Our source spoke to him, and this is just a really nice kind of note. Theo said Duke feels like home. Look, Theo did 4 years at Marquette. He said Duke feels like home, even though he was only here for 1 year. And Theo was playing overseas. He injured his arm while he was playing overseas. Wasn't entirely thrilled with the healthcare situation, with what the advice he was getting overseas. Came back to Duke, had some surgery, and is now recovering and recuperating on Duke's campus. and that he loves Durham and loves being around Duke. We hear all the time, oh, the Brotherhood's just a marketing message, all this other kind of stuff. That is just not the case. These guys, even if they're only here for 1 year, they develop a connection to the program, a connection to Durham, a connection to the university that is lasting. And it feels like home for them, no matter how long they were here. So I just loved hearing that story about Theo John, and I wish him all the best on his recovery from the surgery he had.
Yeah, I'm glad that he's back on campus. So hopefully he's recovering from the surgery and he's going, goes back to thrive again in Europe. I think he, you and I, he's one of our favorites. Just point blank.
Think he can teach Common Malawach a little bit about how to protect the lane?
Yeah. Or just again, him and Mason Gillis can, that mean streak, right? That physical intimidation factor that Theo John possessed.
Amen.
Was something that we deeply, deeply missed because it was so much fun to watch, and that's why he was such a fan favorite. But thank you to the listener, to the spy, tip of the hat to you for all the information that you were able to pass along to us. We really appreciate it. Let's pause here for a quick break. Breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. Cooper Flagg is leaving Duke to join another team for a couple days. We'll tell you which team after this.
It's time for today's Lucky Land horoscope with Victoria Cash.
Life's gotten mundane, so shake up the daily routine and be adventurous with a trip to Lucky Land. You know what they say, your chance to win starts with a spin. So go to LuckyLandSlots.com to play over 100 social casino-style games for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. Get lucky today at LuckyLandSlots.com.
Available to players in the U.S., excluding Washington and Michigan. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, Jason, we are back, and as I alluded to as a tease before the break, Cooper Flagg is going to be leaving Duke, unfortunately, but it's okay. He's only going for a couple days. He's going to Las Vegas, July 6th, July 8th, because he, along with 14 other guys, will be convening there alongside Team USA, USA Basketball. He has been named to the USA Select Team. That is the team that trains with the USA men's basketball team ahead of the Olympics, ahead of any real big competition that USA Basketball has. And it's an extreme honor to be a part of this team. We've had guys in the past who have started on Team Select and have made it to the main roster eventually of USA Basketball. But he is the only college player that is on this list. Cooper Flagg is the real deal, and the fact that he's been involved in USA Basketball programs and the youth level, but to be a part of the select team before having played a game in college, Jason, that is a huge, huge honor.
Yeah, it's something that hasn't happened in about a decade or so. They haven't, there was a time. Look, remember Christian Laettner made the original Dream Team. There was a time when they used to sort of symbolically take college players and high school players. I'm misstating it. College players. To be a part of these teams. They haven't really done that in a while. It's clear that they think Cooper Flagg is that special. I think it's sort of interesting. The select team, it's not like the absolute best, like it's not necessarily rookie of the years, but it's like the guys who are just barely a step below that. Guys like Brandon Miller, who was like third in the rookie of the year voting, Jalen Duren, a number of Jaime Jaquez for Miami, who was a really, really solid rookie year last year, Jabari Smith on the Houston Rockets, Jalen Suggs, Amen Thompson, a lot of guys who are absolutely important players, quite a lot of them starters on their NBA teams. And I think for Cooper Flagg to be playing with those guys will be good. But what will be really good is Cooper Flagg's going to be playing against LeBron James and all the other guys on Team USA. And it's going to be a great chance for him to see what are the skills and attributes that those players have that he needs to adapt to. What does he need to do to become as good as those guys? Because I think everyone hopes and expects that in 4 years' time, Cooper's playing on the main team because that's the kind of potential that he has. Yeah.
In Los Angeles, that 2028 team is going to be one. You know how there's some years where it feels like guys are just turning down opportunities. Like, I don't necessarily want to be on USA Basketball. Everybody who is American that has a shot at this is going to want to be on the USA Basketball team in 2028. And this sets up Cooper Flagg to be mentioned in that conversation down the line. But I also think, Jason, the main point, the main emphasis, and the main theme of USA Select is they are there to make sure that USA Basketball is ready for the Olympics. If you recall back in 92, you mentioned Christian Laettner, 92, the Dream Team. there's stories that have come out of that camp about things that happened in camp and such. But one thing that has been documented for years is that the USA Select team from 1992 beat the pants off of the Dream Team in a couple of scrimmages early on in that camp.
Yep.
And they had a nice little players meeting where, Chuck Daly was like, look, you guys aren't going to win a bronze medal or any medal if you play like this when we go to Barcelona. And then they walked in there, and unfortunately, the Dream Team absolutely manhandled and mollywopped USA Select. But the idea was they have to get them ready for this. These guys are coming in to not only be scouted by USA Basketball for future consideration on any teams, but just to also prepare them for the rigors of the Olympics. And I think it's going to be great to have for Cooper Flagg to get that experience, as you mentioned, to go up against some of these guys and learn from them and play against them. And that maniacal competitive spirit was going to be there, right? He's going to want every team that he's on wins. Let's see if that happens for USA Select, because that'll be an interesting development. But for him to be able to be a part of that is really, really special.
Yeah, well, and look, obviously the great thing for him is to be picked to be alongside these pros, just a bevy of first-round draft picks, guys who are being paid millions and millions of dollars to be great at basketball, and for him to see the work ethic, the skills, and all the things that go into being successful at that level. And, after having to guard Kevin Durant, I think he's going to find it easier to guard other ACC wings. I don't know about you.
Yeah. I mean, like you mentioned a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about how he's like learning and what the individual drills are for him. They're geared towards, hey, don't worry about some dude from Clemson taking the ball from you. You're learning this so that Jimmy Butler doesn't take the ball away from you at the next level. Here's how you're supposed to, keep control of the ball and things like that. So really, really cool for him. He's going to be in camp. Common Malwatch is going to be leaving very soon to go to South Sudan for the Olympics.
Yep.
Absolutely incredible that we have a couple of guys before they step foot on a college court on an official game are going to be representing their country, at least on some form on the international level. That will do it for this episode of DBR Bites. Jason, it's been a long week. We're going to go get some rest, go get some sleep. I'll do the same. We'll catch you back a little bit later. But until then, dbrpodcast@gmail.com if you want to email us.
Make sure you tell people about that email address.
Yes.
We're getting good intel from the email
We're
address.
getting some good stuff. And if you have topics, off-season conversation, this is the time to do it, ladies and gentlemen, while it is summertime and we love to be outside. Let's come inside and talk about some Duke basketball. Again, dbrpodcast@gmail.com. That is the line that you need to hit us up on to give us that intel. But for Jason Evans, I am Donald Wine. This has been this episode of DBR Bites. And now it is time for the Duke band to play us out and take us home.